Welcome to another edition of The Explainer. If you're a focused learner, someone who really values your time, your home's efficiency, and let's be real, your wallet, well, you are absolutely in the perfect place. Today, we're diving into a highly practical, totally no-fluff explainer dedicated to something thousands of San Diego homeowners are dealing with literally right now, keeping that heat pump running smoothly all year round. We're going to look at the hard data, the exact mechanics, and the actual costs of heat pump maintenance in our specific Southern California climate.
So let me ask you a question right out of the gate. Did you just pay for an AC tune-up on a heat pump? I'm asking because this is a critical mistake, and it is happening all over San Diego. You see, a heat pump is fundamentally different from a standard air conditioner. If your tech just ran through a standard AC checklist, you missed the absolute most important components of your entire system. Here is our transparent roadmap for today. We'll cover why heat pumps are mechanically different, the real maintenance checklist, coastal salt versus inland heat, the true cost of skipping maintenance, and finally, what it actually costs.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. Why heat pumps are different.
Think about a traditional setup for a second. Your AC unit cools your house all summer, right? And then it basically gets to rest entirely all winter while your gas furnace takes over. While a heat pump, it doesn't have that luxury. It works year-round. It's cooling your house during a massive July heat wave, and then it's heating your house when us San Diegans bring out the heavy parkas for a freezing 55-degree January morning. It uses the exact same refrigerant loop for both jobs, meaning it literally never gets a season off.
The real magic behind a heat pump is something called the reversing valve. It physically reverses the flow of refrigerant. And that's exactly what allows the system to push heat out of your house in the summer and then pull heat into your house in the winter. Because it works so incredibly hard, it's a prime candidate for wear and tear. And guess what? A generic AC tune-up checklist completely ignores it. Why? Because standard ACs simply don't have one.
Now, the second major feature that gets totally ignored by standard AC maintenance is the defrost cycle. On those cool San Diego mornings, the outdoor coil of your heat pump can actually ice over. So, the system has a built-in defrost sensor and a board to trigger a cycle that melts that ice. If this isn't checked, and it happens to fail, your system will literally freeze up. And again, an AC-only tech? They're not even looking for this.
Moving right along to Section 2, the real maintenance checklist.
So, the crucial point is, what does a worthwhile maintenance visit actually look like? Well, a proper visit must cycle the reversing valve in both directions just to make sure it switches cleanly. They absolutely must test the defrost sensor so it triggers only when necessary. And they have to measure your refrigerant charge in both heating and cooling modes. Why is that a big deal? Because the system can actually run perfectly fine in one direction, but be completely undercharged and straining the compressor in the other. They also need to inspect electrical components like the capacitor, clean the outdoor coil, and calibrate the thermostat. Literally every single one of these steps is non-negotiable. Seriously, remember this. Skip those specific steps, and you're really just getting an AC tune-up with a heat pump's price tag. The financial danger of paying for incomplete service is very real. If an HVAC company gives you a quote, you need to verify exactly what it covers before booking the appointment. If they don't explicitly mention the reversing valve or the defrost board, do yourself a favor and find someone else. And because a heat pump works double duty, you really need a twice-a-year cadence here in San Diego. You want a spring pre-cooling check to catch any refrigerant issues before a brutal July heat wave hits. And then you want a fall pre-heating check. That's going to catch a faulty defrost board or a sticking reversing valve before a chilly 40-degree December morning leaves you totally shivering in the inland valleys.
Which brings us to Section 3, coastal salt versus inland heat.
I want you to visually divide San Diego in your mind. On one side, we have our coastal areas, places like Solana Beach, Encinitas, and Imperial Beach. Here, salt-laden marine air is just constantly attacking your unit. But on the other side, we have our inland areas, places like Escondido, Santee, and El Cajon, where relentless summer heat soak pushes the equipment to its absolute limits. So, for those of you living within, say, 1 to 2 miles of the ocean, that coastal salt air corrodes an outdoor unit's coil fins and electrical contacts way faster than it would inland. If you're on the coast, you actually benefit from an added annual coil inspection right between your two standard visits. Gradual salt corrosion is just so much easier to catch and clean early than it is to try and reverse once the metal is already degrading. Conversely, if you're inland, heat is your absolute worst enemy.
A unit sitting in direct sun on a concrete pad in El Cajon. That thing can run its internal components 10 to 15 degrees hotter than the exact same model sitting in a shaded yard over in La Jolla. That extreme inland heat load pushes the compressors so much harder, and it's the exact reason why capacitor failures show up way earlier on inland heat pumps.
Now let's look at Section 4, the true cost of skipping.
You see, systems don't just break all at once. They fail in a cascade. First, your efficiency drops. You might not even feel it in the air temperature, but then step 2 hits. Your already painful SDG&E bill slowly creeps even higher. Then, the mechanical failures start. The reversing valve starts sticking. The defrost cycle runs way too long. Or maybe the board fails entirely. By the time you actually notice the house isn't getting cool or warm, the refrigerant charge is usually so far off that it leads to severe compressor strain.
And the takeaway here is absolutely vital. A strained compressor is literally the single most expensive fix possible on a heat pump. A stuck reversing valve? That means you are stuck with only heating or only cooling. A dead defrost board means ice will just build up until the whole system suffocates. Look, none of this is cheap to fix outright. The real cost isn't the missed maintenance visit. It's the massive, expensive repair that the missed visit would have easily caught and prevented.
And this brilliantly illustrates Section 5, what it actually costs. Let's bring the focus squarely back to your wallet. So for a single, standalone heat pump maintenance visit in the San Diego area, you're typically looking at somewhere between $129 and $249. This is the clear-cut cost to have a vetted professional come out, test that reversing valve, check the defrost board, and measure the dual-directional refrigerant. However, remember earlier when we said heat pumps really need 2 visits a year, spring and fall? Well, if you buy an annual bundled plan that covers both of these visits together, the typical cost is about $180 to $320 total for the whole year. The simple math here heavily favors this bundled plan. I mean, you're getting twice the protection for a fraction of the cost of buying 2 standalone visits.
Let's anchor those prices for a second. $200 to $300 a year is a highly modest number next to what a reversing valve or a blown compressor repair costs if a problem goes uncaught. Don't think of this as an expense. Think of it as a brilliant, no-brainer investment to protect a system that is quite literally running every single month of the year. So I'll leave you with this final thought and question. Did your last tune-up mention a reversing valve? Go check. Go scrutinize your last invoice. If that terminology isn't on there, you simply didn't get heat pump maintenance. Take some practical action before the next season hits, find a vetted local pro, and get your system the specific care it actually needs. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep learning.